I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The big stories for us to talk about are Daniel Ricciardo out, Liam Lawson in. We had a lot to talk about on that because we were there when Liam Lawson, when he got signed by Red Bull. We, as in you were there.
Yeah.
And you were on the microphones calling the races that Liam Lawson won. And they were big because they were against big opponents. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Andretti story where Michael Andretti
stepped down.
The headline is Michael Andretti stepping down, and technically that's true. He's not stepping away or retiring, so we'll have more about that story. And we got lots of other little Formula One and a couple of other stories to talk about. Some MotoGP, just a little bit
MotoGP,
there.
yeah, fine. I've just watched it. I do have a different take on where I was last week at Singapore. Now the dust has settled on the Ricciardo's decision. I, like everybody else, felt he was much maligned and it was just poorly done.
Yes.
But in a weird way, this whole week has been a tribute from all corners of the world, from Max all the way to journalists, to fellow competitors, to guys he's helped along the way. There's been a real, if you watch your social media feed, Ricciardo has been given almost obits. And so, in a weird way, I think the outrage that we all had at Singapore that he didn't get the send-off, and even the fastest lap was kind of like not really official, like, oh, did we intend that? Or, McLaren saying, oh, we're going to look into it. It was less about taste in your mouth is what I'm getting at. But this whole week has been some fantastic tributes, including Ricciardo himself saying, hey, it's been a great journey. Thanks for all the memories type thing. And so now, there really is some nice stuff out there on the internet thanking what has been one of the major guys, one of the hardest things in Formula One or of any sport, swimming, football, is to have a Peyton Manning-like character to your approach to what is a very serious and very expensive sport, both for Peyton Manning and in motorsport. We see the churlishness of Max Verstappen, and actually it's one of the few criticisms I have of him. I wish he could be more like Ricciardo and have some fun with it.
Yeah.
He is the world champion.
He's starting to a little bit. A
but
little bit. The press conferences were fun. He had Lando cracking up.
But if you told Max to try to impersonate Daniel Ricciardo, you know what I mean?
It's not him, though.
And there's very few characters like a Ricciardo that come along once in a blue moon.
Absolutely. Well, I thought a lot about this because there's been so much about Daniel Ricciardo that's kind of like, he's at the end of his career, but we can't forget just how good Daniel Ricciardo was when he came in. I got some great stats for you because when he came into the league, I mean, he was into the series. In 2014, when he moved to Red Bull, he was arguably, as good as anybody in the sport back then because, he had a 12-year F1 career, but when he came in, he just stepped into across the garage from four-time champion Sebastian Vettel.
Yep.
He came in when they had just changed the power unit, so there was all of this disarray.
Did he do Toro Rosso before he came?
He did.
Okay.
He did Toro Rosso before. Did a couple of years of Toro Rosso before, but it was not an easy situation to get thrown into. Mm-mm. But I love, you think of Daniel getting thrown into anything, and he's going to be easygoing and relaxed about it. But he basically asserted himself as the fastest driver then, across from Sebastian Vettel. Let's not forget that.
Yep.
So he got his first Grand Prix victory in the 7th round at Montreal, actually, and he finished third in the championship behind the two dominant Mercedes. You remember, this is the first year of the turbo hybrid era when Mercedes just ran away with the championship. Their car was head and shoulders above everybody else, and of course Daniel Ricciardo was third behind them.
I'd forgotten he was at Toro Rosso, and he was with John-Eric Verne, who was gone on to be a fantastic driver. Yeah.
So, and here's some other stats that you're going to like. Verstappen and Ricciardo were teammates together, right, between 2016 and 2018. So, right now we know where Max Verstappen is on the pedestal, right? He's by far the highest rated driver right now.
Yep.
And I think even Hamilton fans won't argue at least that right now he's rated there. So head to head, they had 3 years together, right? So During those 3 years, Ricciardo outscored Verstappen by 5 points. Now,
Did he really?
over 3 years, he also had a higher average season finish of 4.6 to Verstappen's 5.0. I mean, those are two pretty big stats to go against what will arguably go down as a Hall of Fame-ish driver like Max Verstappen. So, and you think about what happened next, right? So Ricciardo saw the writing on the wall. The momentum was with Max those last 2 seasons. He was outscored and finished lower than Max those last 2 seasons.
It wasn't a surprise to see him go.
But it wasn't like he was being, demolished by Max. But in my mind, he decided he could have stayed at Red Bull and had a fantastic career, right? His stats would have been, he would have certainly had more wins, a lot more wins, because he only had, after Red Bull, he only had the win with McLaren. I'll bring up his stats again, but he had most of his wins with Red Bull.
One with McLaren, yeah.
Yes, one with McLaren.
At Monza, yeah.
He didn't have one with Renault, I don't believe.
No, he didn't.
So he only had one win outside of Red Bull. Well, think about this, though. He's going, I don't want to be a second fiddle. That's just, he pictured in his mind, when he was at Red Bull, he was thinking, I could be a world champion. And he's going, if I'm up against Max, the team has been showing, okay, we're going to give our number one support behind this driver.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And so he left.
And they did.
And they did, and he left. And he left because he wanted to leave.
Yeah, and Helmut Marko made a comment, which is this week, saying that he reckons that he started losing his grip, as it were, on his, brilliance right after he left Red Bull. And he said he shouldn't have left Red Bull, but he was coaxed away to Renault by Cyril Attebol, who I know well. And when you look at Ricciardo's career, of course, Cyril Attebol and Renault, he was runner-up. He did 2 seasons of the Renault 3.5 series. And he also won in Formula Renault. So he had some good allegiance to Renault. He was a Renault guy as well. But it turned out to be a mistake because, as we know, that team actually since that time, since 13, has really not done anything. Gasly's had a win, Ocon's had a win, but really, Alpine have not really been the team to be in.
A mistake to go to Renault, yes. Because remember at that point, they were saying things like, we're going to do what it takes to become a proper, manufacturer, constructor, and we're gonna start winning races. So yes, it was a mistake.
He was meant to be their savior.
Yes, but I would argue that it was not a mistake to leave Red Bull.
Oh no, I would have actually taken the same, because you could see the team forming around him, and that, by the way, is a very true thing of all sport, especially in motor racing. I was reading an article on Alonso Jr., one of the greatest drivers Indy's ever produced. 2-time championship winner, 2-time Indy 500 winner in the family, of course, whatever. But everybody said, all his teammates to a man said, it was always his team. He had a personality that got the team around him. Verstappen has that. Ricciardo has that. You can't have two.
Yeah, that's very true. And so had he stayed, he would have just been the number 2 guy.
Fiddle, yeah.
And that's how he would be remembered, kind of like Bottas.
Weber.
Yeah. I mean, no. I would argue Bottas and Weber, not in my mind, are very different. Because
but Weber at Red Bull.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes,
second drive. Eddie Irvine at Ferrari.
Yes,
Barrichello at Ferrari.
So I mean, I think he did the right thing by leaving. He chose the wrong team to move to.
I think so.
And by the time he got to
McLaren was a better fit, but by then he really was soul destroyed. I feel he never got his mojo back.
Yeah, and just think about how. That what you describe as mojo is to a Formula One driver. Confidence is
well, especially
everything.
To Daniel.
Yeah,
he's an all on the sleeve kind of guy. It's all out there.
Yep. So